come and speak today on Memorial Day, partly because she wasn't going to be here, and partly because I'm a veteran. But just being an old retired sergeant major doesn't qualify me for any special honors on today. Today, or not today, tomorrow on Memorial Day. But I do have a few thoughts on it. Most of the people here know that there's some mighty fine people whose names are listed in the circle from the various wars our nation's fought. Two of my dearest friends that were here in the congregation, Perry Nye and Gerald Bean, outstanding people, great soldiers. Gerald especially jumped in at D-Day, was transferred to a unit, then went to fight at Bastogne, and then got picked into a unit that jumped into Operation Market Garden in Holland. One of the most humble people I know, but he's not honored on the 30th of May. He's honored on the 11th of November, on Veterans Day, other than by obviously immediate family and friends who honor him and his memory every day. So just a little bit about the traditions of Memorial Day. It's kind of unique. When I was reading about it, I thought I knew everything about it. I didn't. I do that a lot. One of the things is that Memorial Day, although humanity is always, from ancient times on, always to honor family, friends, warriors that were killed in defense of their tribe or their nation. Memorial Day is uniquely an American holiday. It was originally Decoration Day, and it didn't start after the Civil War. Initially in Columbus, Georgia, nearby Fort Benning, Georgia, widows of the Confederacy got together and formed an actual group that laid flowers on the graves of soldiers, even though the Civil War hadn't ended. When the Civil War did end, Confederate and Union soldiers were buried in what today is Arlington National Cemetery. And the chief of the Army at that time, a General Logan, made a special order, which all soldiers had to follow, Order Number 11, General Order Number 11, that mandated that on the 5th of May, flowers would be laid on the graves of soldiers from the Confederacy and from the Union Army alike. The 30th of May, they're not quite sure exactly why that was picked to be Memorial Day, other than the day was selected in 1868, and there was no major battle during the Civil War that was fought on that day. So they didn't want to honor, they didn't want it to be in conflict with any major battle that might have been fought by the Grand Army of the Republic or fought by the Confederacy. And at that point, and if this is the point of that notion of history, there was a tremendous effort made among the armies, the previous armies of the Confederacy and the Union, to try and unify and recognize each other's losses as soldiers. Which I find that pretty unique today, that that major effort after tremendous battles and years of war was made to make sure that everybody honored each other's fallen. My entire life we've celebrated originally Decoration Day, but then it was started being called Memorial Day in the late 1880s. And then it was adopted as Memorial Day. I thought it was adopted since the Civil War, but it wasn't until 1971 that the government actually recognized Memorial Day as a federal holiday, which I must have missed, but I think that's when I was in Vietnam. So they don't, that seems to me awfully late for the government to be recognizing a holiday, but they did. And they recognized it by the flags staying at half-mast until noon, and then they're raised to full staff after they're completely lowered and then raised again to full staff. But now's the part that I can speak without notes about. And that's one of my dearest friends in the Army, Joseph Sweeney, corporal from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who I met in advanced infantry training, and we palled up, and we went to jump school together, and then we volunteered for Vietnam together, and then we volunteered for the Ranger Company together. And on this day, today, the 29th of May, he was on a different team because they didn't put new guys together on the same team. So he was on a 6-man team in the Central Highlands on the Cambodian border, where Laos and Cambodia all come together. And they had found a well-used trail, and he was on rear security, which was typical for new guys. That means out of the 6 men, you're the one that is the last one in the file, and your responsibility is to keep looking to the rear and making sure you're not being backtracked or stumbled upon. So they had taken a break. I know this because his team leader, another dear friend of mine, Carl Millender, was there when he was killed. And they had taken a break to take a knee and listen to see if they could hear anything. They hadn't, and so they got up to move, and Sweeney was putting on his rucksack, just tightening the straps as he got up, and there was an NVA, actually a number of NVA, that were off to the side, and they opened up on him and killed him, and then the rest of the team was able to return fire and then break contact. But he was a really unique guy. He was one of 10 or 12 children in Philadelphia with no designs on college, and with a family that size in Philadelphia, median income, the parents had a rule that when you graduate high school, you have to either go in the service or find a good job where you can live on your own. So Joe opted for the service at that time, which meant that he volunteered pretty much right in the middle of the Vietnam War to be in the Army. Nice guy, smiled, good heart, loyal friend, and he got killed just like that. So the sad part is that when I think back about him, and I think about Juan Santos Borjas, my first team leader who was killed on my initial tour in Vietnam, Borja was a little older than Sweeney. Sweeney was my age, but they never get a chance, which is you'll read in a variety of poppy-like quotes on Memorial Day. They never get a chance to get married. They never get a chance to have children. They never get a chance to have a job that they get to pick what they do. They never get a chance to grow old. They're gone, and they're gone very early in life. And young soldiers are the ones that bear the brunt of the war. I've been in 3 different combat theaters, and the last 2, I went out on patrol on my own, but the last 2 I was basically right behind the desk. It was just the young people that get killed. And that's true almost all the time. Occasionally, an older fellow will be killed, but not usually. So those 2 people and multitude of others never had a chance. And as I was talking to Keegan, if you'd wake up, please. As I was talking to Keegan earlier, when I was at Master Gunner School at Fort Knox, there's a little old cemetery. I think I took Marcia to it once, right above Otter Creek. And it's filled with Confederate graves. So I would go there to study on the weekends because it was quiet, nobody was there, you never got bothered. But a lot of the graves, I eventually took a couple friends of mine, but on the date of the death of the individual, like I told you, Keegan, if you researched it, and we were pretty smart in those days on that kind of stuff, but the people that were killed at Chancellorsville, the people that were killed at Antietam, the people that were killed at Manassas, First Bull Run, this is a point of interest for you, Keegan, especially. There's only one battle in the Civil War that both the Confederacy and the Union Army recognize as having the same name.
That's why I had to do it assessment.
Gettysburg. Every other, whether it's Chancellorsville, Antietam, Bull Run, Manassas, the Confederacy had one name for the battle, the Union Army had another name, except for Gettysburg, which is close enough for you to go visit someday.
I want to study it for school.
So, I would like to bring up something that's unique to the Vietnam War, I think. The criteria for being honored on Memorial Day or Decoration Day is you had to be killed in combat, or you had to die of a subsequent wound incurred in combat. So that kind of narrows the window down as far as the length of time. Up until World War II, probably World War I, but because a lot of the guys were exposed in World War II, especially Marsh's father, Edward Paulin, was on a battleship, the USS New Orleans, in World War II. The front of it got torpedoed off. They had to go in reverse all the way back to Hawaii, where they had a bunch of steel just welded on the front. But he worked in the engine room, and he was exposed to a lot of asbestos. So they started recognizing in the 60s and 70s people exposed extreme in combat to asbestos resulted in cancer and resulted in deaths. So they would qualify. In Vietnam, my two dearest friends that I served with off and on for almost 40 years, Jimmy Acuna and Bill Wilkinson, both of them just died over the past 2 years of Agent Orange induced cancer. Acuna, who never smoked a cigarette in his life, don't think he probably drank more than 6 beers in his entire life, stayed incredibly physically fit, stayed in the Army almost as long as me. 3 different types of cancer, all Agent Orange presumed, and he died 2 years ago. Bill Wilkinson died last year of a heart condition that was aggravated but presumed to be Agent Orange presumptive induced. So I say those folks also are honored on Memorial Day. I think they fit the criteria, but I'm pretty strict with criteria and standards, and that's one. So I passed out with your bulletin a sonnet written by Robert Frost, and if you look that up, if you still have World Book encyclopedias, which you probably don't, but if you have Google or one of the various search engines, you can look up Robert Frost and you'll find that his sonnet, A Soldier, written in 1928, is probably the least discussed poem and investigated and evaluated poem that he ever wrote. And yet, when I first stumbled on it years ago in a book, Complete Poetry of Robert Frost, I think I was in college at the time, I thought, because this is after I'd already had my initial service, I thought, holy cow, this is exactly what this is a tremendous honor and commentary on a soldier who died in some forgotten war, and no one really knew, if you translate the fallen lance with a tombstone, you'll see that he's talking about when people look at a grave and they're not sure when, how he died, where it was as far as a soldier. Let me just read it from this point. It becomes very clear. He is that fallen lance that lies as hurled, that lies unlifted now, come dew, come rust, but still lies pointed as it plowed the dust. If we who sight along it round the world see nothing worthy to have been its mark, it is because like men we look too near, forgetting that as fitted to the spear, our missiles always make too short an arc. They fall, they rip the grass, they intersect the curve of the earth, and striking, break their own. They make us cringe for metal point on stone, but this we know, the obstacle that checked and tripped the body shot the spirit on further than target ever showed or shown. And so with that, I'd like to close. Thank you very much.